Hi there, I'm Patrick Culliton, and I'm here to talk about my career in television and films, and especially about Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. So let's go, full speed ahead. I was born in Los Angeles, but I consider myself a native of Massachusetts because that's where my father is from. He was in the Army Air Corps during World War II, stationed in Los Alamos as a radar officer. My mother went to Los Angeles for my birth, and I was born there in 1944. The fact that my dad was an officer in the Army Air Corps, his specialty being radar, is interesting since on Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, on at least one episode, I was the radar man.
Is it the mini-sub? Could be. It's the same size.
My mother came from a theatrical family. Her father was a playwright, her brother was an Oscar winner, and her brother-in-law was a successful actor. I guess you could say that show business was in my DNA. After the war, Dad moved us back to a little town in eastern Massachusetts where more Culliton family members lived. He became an attorney. With my little brother Joe and two sisters, I was growing up in the peace and prosperity of the post-war years, and then a major new medium took the country by storm: television.
My dad bought a TV set in 1949 so that I saw the first episode of The Lone Ranger. In particular, Hopalong Cassidy and The Lone Ranger were probably my two very favorites.
Because I developed an interest in magic,
I never missed Mark Wilson's Magic Land of Alakazam.
In 1953, the Cullitons permanently relocated to Los Angeles, and my dad continued his law practice. I transferred high schools in my junior year and wound up at Hollywood High, surrounded by kids who were connected in some way to the film industry.
There were kids like John Clifford who had his SAG card. I signed up for a Drama 2 course. I became a very quick study with lines. I could learn them and do them. And the play they were doing that semester was Midsummer Night's Dream, so that became the first play that I did. I was playing Francis Flute.
Francis was one of those Shakespeare characters who crossed dresses. I was a little resistant, but took the part, and the play went very well.
Then the next year they did The Crucible, but I couldn't be in The Crucible because my grades were lousy. Calculus, that's where I washed out completely in the math department, but my English classes were always A's and B's, and my history classes were A's and B's. The next semester would be my last semester at Hollywood High. They announced that they were going to do the play The Music Man. I was a big Music Man fan, and I wanted to play that part. I wanted it more than I ever wanted anything in my life. And I went around to each of my teachers and I told them, listen, I'm going to do everything I can to get through your course and do it well. So my teachers reluctantly agreed. One of them said, well, you'll be perfect in that part, because there I was going around conning all my teachers. And then I got the word that Johnny Crawford was coming to Hollywood High.
Johnny had just finished 5 seasons starring with Chuck Connors on The Rifleman. Not only that, but he had a great voice and a pretty successful recording career. Johnny could have any part he wanted in The Music Man.
The musical director was the producer of this, and she asked Johnny, who do you want to play? And Johnny said, well, I've been playing somebody for quite a few years now. He said, I'd love to sing in the chorus. She put him in the chorus, and I wound up playing the Music Man. It was very competitive, very hard to get that part.
Everyone who's seen The Music Man knows that the entire show rests on the shoulders of Professor Harold Hill. and I gave it everything because it was my first chance to make good. And Hollywood High is right in the middle of the industry. You never know where things will lead, and I have to thank Johnny Crawford for being generous enough to be in the chorus. He just did a walk-on leading the Wells Fargo wagon. I felt successful and grateful to my teachers who let me have a tremendous opportunity, and then I thought maybe I could become a professional actor.
Pat Carroll was a family friend. She got me a scholarship to go back and be an apprentice in Summerstock at a theater outside Plymouth, Massachusetts called the Priscilla Beach Theater. Within 5 weeks of playing the Music Man at Hollywood High, I was doing a Neil Simon play, Come Blow Your Horn, in Summerstock. I finished the apprenticeship and came back to Los Angeles. I enrolled in Los Angeles City College. I took a nighttime acting class. I got cast in a production of a play called Haiti, which was being done at a theater called the Ebony Showcase Theater. The director was James Edwards.
James was a highly respected actor who became my mentor and a lifelong friend. His influence on my career was in fact life-changing. But coming down the road was another person who greatly affected my life, and that person was Irwin Allen.
I first met Irwin Allen in 1962, shortly after the Bel Air fire. And in the Bel Air fire, the house just up the hill from Irwin burned to the ground. The house just down the hill from Irwin just burned to the ground, and across the street from Irwin burned to the ground. But Irwin's house was saved.
Irwin was renting that house from one of my father's clients.
As an attorney, went out to inspect the smoke damage and help Irwin file an insurance claim. I was just very interested in the house because everything on the wall were posters from Irwin's movies. I didn't have any conversation with him or Paul to speak of. I was just tagging along while he and my father discussed the smoke damage.
Time was moving on and I continued to act in the theater, but I had to bring in more income as an actor.
My father gave Irwin Allen a call and asked him if he could, if he got a chance, would he see me? And Irwin said he would certainly try. I got an interview with Irwin Allen. It was very brief. He told me, what have you been doing? And I said, well, I just finished a season of Shakespearean repertory down at the Old Globe in San Diego. And Irwin said, well, we're not doing Shakespeare here. He said, I'm looking for a young cast. I'll try to find something. I'll try to use you. So a few weeks later, I got a call to come in and do this episode of a voyage called No Way Out.
It was a small part, but I did have dialogue.
Excuse me. Sorry, sir. No one's allowed inside.
And being on a network show would look very good on my resume.
I don't know about that, sir. I just know that the sick bay is off limits.
It was my first job. I remember I was rigid with fear, and Jan Merlin was a very experienced actor. He guided me through that first day. You're always very, very grateful to some older guy, maybe the first actor you're in a scene with, who understands what he's got on his hands and kind of takes care of you.
You will pay careful attention to all orders and carry them out exactly as given.
Yes, sir.
The director was a very interesting old guy named Felix Feist. Felix wanted me to look after David as David was walking off and going. And I was mouthing unintelligible words. I was not saying anything like, you damn son of a bitch or something. But he said, it looked like you called him a son of a bitch. I can't use it. I would have had to be more, non-specific. Anyway, that broke my heart. I wanted to do it again. Because that was a funny, grumble, grumble, grumble to do that. But no, just in character, thank God.
I'm sorry, Mac. I didn't think the captain would jump on you that hard.
It's all right, sir.
Well, first of all, I was only supposed to get 1 day's work, but it stretched to 2. And that was very meaningful because back in those days, money was so different that those 2 days' work got me my SAG card. It paid for my SAG card and my first 6 months' dues. So that was very thrilling. On the second day, I was sitting on these steps that run up the sides of the soundstage walls. And I was looking over the set and watching them film. And Irwin came in, and when the director said cut, he looked up at me and said, he pointed, he said, "Very good." And I said, "Excuse me?" And he said, "I saw you in the dailies. You were very good." And that was the beginning of really a long and fruitful relationship for me. I'm not sure which of us zigged when we should have zagged, but Del caught me square in the nose.